Today I'm covering some of Janeway and Seven's gayest moments. As I mentioned in my video essay on why Janeway and Seven make a logical couple, it's because there is a surprisingly robust subtext narrative that emerges if you're willing to see it. Now, when we're talking about Janeway and Seven's moments, there isn't any one that is irrevocably and definitively gay, although my last entry on this list is a strong contender.
Hello, Seven.
No, it's a series of moments that build a picture of what was going on between these women. A popular standout moment with the sapphic Voyager fandom is when in Season 6, Episode 9, The Voyager Conspiracy, Janeway talks Seven down from leaving Voyager.
But you should believe me, Seven, because I've never lied to you. And I'm not lying to you now. You have to put your doubts aside and trust me.
In the episode, Seven falls into a spiral of ever-evolving delusional conspiracy theories as she tries to make sense of the teraquads of data she is downloading during each regeneration. After successfully identifying that some dips in energy is caused by photonic flies, she is emboldened to spin ever more wild theories. At the heart of these theories lies Captain Janeway, which, given she's the captain, is perhaps not peculiar, although given how the episode concludes, it suggests that it's not a coincidence. Janeway, as the person with the strongest bond to Seven, beams onto the Delta Flyer and begins to talk her down, hoping to break through to Seven by reciting important dates of her milestones.
Stardate 52841. For the first time, Seven tells the captain, "Thank you."
It was Stardate 52842. 0600 hours in the mess hall.
My mistake.
And it works, which shows how important they are to each other. Firstly, that Janeway remembers these star dates so well, and that Janeway's presence is enough to break through Seven's paranoia. I mean, it's a moment, and not just because of the way Janeway crouches down before Seven, and how they look at each other, which sure gets my spidey senses going. The full significance of this moment sits on the shoulders of many other moments, both large and small.
There you are.
At this point in their story, we've already established that Seven has a strong attachment to Janeway, respects her and wishes to live up to her expectations. This is seen in how Seven's first expression of emotions are related to Janeway in Season 4, Episode 6, The Raven.
And tell Captain Janeway what's happened to me. Thank her for her patience, for her kindness.
In Season 4, Episode 15, Hunters, when Seven spends hours downloading 6 words in a data stream from Earth.
6 words in 58 hours? Wouldn't it be more efficient just to wait until we arrive at the relay station?
This message is important to the captain.
Or at the end of the series, playing out holodeck simulations to practice saying thank you.
Since I arrived on Voyager, your guidance has been invaluable. Thank you, Captain.
With a frankly flirty holo Janeway, who, let's just remember, was programmed by Seven.
I can arrange some quarters for you, unless you enjoy curling up in the cargo bay.
The bed would be more comfortable.
On a larger level, there is how Seven is willing to sacrifice herself for Janeway. This is seen most notably in Season 5, Episode 15 and 16, Dark Frontier, when she willingly goes back to the Collective in order to save Voyager, and though she was sacrificing herself for Voyager, it was really for Janeway, the person that she has the closest bond, let's be real. Janeway then puts the ship in jeopardy in return to get Seven back, which leads to a confrontation with the Borg Queen, no less. And there is something about how they are fighting over Seven that it has vibes. That is not to speak of how Janeway risks her entire crew more than once to save Seven, like when she violates the borders of an alien species, essentially declaring war to rescue her in The Raven, is willing to risk Tuvok with a highly risky mind meld in Season 5, Episode 7, Infinite Regress, to save Seven from being overwhelmed by voices of the people she'd assimilated, or how Seven is willing to die multiple times in an effort to save Voyager from destruction in Season 5, Episode 24, Relativity, when a time crime threatens to destroy the ship in the past. Speaking of which, this episode highlights a kind of instinctive affinity Janeway has for Seven. Now, it is established many times over in small ways how special Seven is to Janeway, like when she offers to show Seven her home when they get back to Earth, or showing a consistent and special interest in Seven and how she is doing, something that she shows no one else on the ship. This affinity she has for Seven is seen from the first moment she steps out of her alcove, which is surely what leads to her fighting for Seven to stay on board when no one else cares to.
Maybe at her core, she'll always be part of the collective.
No, I won't accept that.
And she continues to allow Seven to stay, even when she actively betrays her multiple times, like in Season 4, Episode 6, The Raven, when suffering from PTSD from her assimilation, and most notably in Season 4, Episode 16, Prey, when she sabotages Janeway's plans. It's clear that Janeway feels angry and betrayed, but she ultimately forgives her with nothing more than a slap on the wrist. Given how she pulls back from Chakotay following his refusal to support her decision to form an alliance with the Borg in Scorpion 1 and 2, thus ending the flirty intimacy of the earlier seasons between them, Janeway's willingness to forgive Seven has weight. This affinity, this willingness to trust Seven on nothing but a feeling, plays out again in Relativity, when Seven travels back in time prior to her arrival on Voyager. Although a complete stranger to Janeway at this point in time, she is, once again, willing to trust her with the safety of her ship with little more than a few exchanges.
When you take me from the Borg, you are going to tell me that part of being human is learning to trust. Trust me, now.
Lower the force field.
Which is perhaps why when Seven in Season 5, Episode 11, Latent Image, is able to change Janeway's mind. Once Janeway has made up her mind, she is singular and stubborn, sometimes to the point of folly. Here she appears to be resolute in editing what she views as malfunctioning code in the Doctor's program when he is faced with a dilemma he can't wrap his head around. Seven comes to her late in the night wanting to understand why Janeway would be so willing to violate the Doctor in this way, and it becomes clear that her confusion hides a deeper fear.
It is unsettling. You say that I am a human being, and yet I am also Borg. Part of me not unlike your replicator. Not unlike the Doctor. Will you one day choose to abandon me as well? I have always looked to you as my example, my guide to humanity. Perhaps I've been mistaken. Good night.
It's a powerful moment that reveals many layers to the Janeway and Seven dynamic. It reveals how important Janeway is to Seven, giving rise to her fear of not measuring up to Janeway's exacting standards, and consequently being abandoned by the most important person in Seven's life. When the situation is filtered through Seven's lens, Janeway has a rare perception shift, and she is stricken because she suddenly understands what it is she's proposing. No one else could have changed her mind on this. Not Chakotay, who had previously tried and failed on different matters, nor Tuvok with his logic. But this emotional plea by Seven pierces through Janeway's reasoning. And it makes sense, because Seven matters to her deeply. But that is just the tip of the iceberg for how special Seven is to Janeway, because in Season 7, Episode 2, Imperfection, Janeway is ready to kill for Seven when she needs a new cortical node, a piece of Borg technology that she would die without.
A node from a dead drone isn't going to work.
Who said anything about a dead drone?
Are you suggesting ending one life to save another?
I'm not giving up on her.
Neither am I!
You can see how the prospect of losing Seven affects Janeway. The thought of it is untenable, and we see her, tears brimming in her eyes as she tries to reconcile the possibility.
I've disappointed you. You feel your task is incomplete. That's why my death will be difficult for you to accept.
Is that what you think? That you haven't lived up to my expectations?
Clearly, I haven't.
You haven't failed, Seven. You've exceeded my expectations. You've become an individual, an extraordinary individual. If I'm having trouble accepting your condition, it's only because I don't want to lose a friend.
Let's just say that this isn't something that Janeway does as a rule. So while you might assume Janeway was saying this in jest, given the kind of irrational and steely resolve she can have when sufficiently roused, she was in all likelihood not. You'll see what I mean by how far Janeway actually goes in order to save Seven. But before I speak more on that, I want to touch on that time that Janeway was jealous when Seven was having feelings for someone else. In Season 6, Episode 26, it is discovered that there is a kind of shared dream state select Borg drones share when regenerating. The shared dream state allowed the drones to retain their individuality, and Seven discovers that she used to go there during her regenerations, and furthermore had a romantic entanglement with one of the other drones there called Axum. When Seven mentions Axum in passing, Janeway immediately clocks that, and her facial suggests that she guesses it's romantic. It's not a sly or happy look either. So when Seven, with an uncharacteristic willingness to volunteer personal information, confirms the suspicion, Janeway's lopsided, watery smile defies understanding, if not read as it being a bit of a gut punch. She is jealous. And perhaps that feels like something of a reach, although the way Janeway swings around and sees Seven without her implant is full of some kind of emotion that belies a fully platonic interpretation. At least I think. When paired with a tendency for Janeway and Seven's storyline to repeatedly intersect, throwing them together again and again, a very popular trope used as a shorthand for romantic pairings, a romantic narrative seems quite simply obvious to me. If it had been a man and a woman, there would not be a question about what was happening. We get intimate moments such as when Janeway adjusts Seven's cortical node, where Seven jokes about their thoughts becoming one.
I'm your captain. That means I can't always be your friend. Understand?
No. However, if we are assimilated, our thoughts will become one, and I'm sure I will understand perfectly. A joke, Captain.
And then that time Janeway teases Seven about all the data she's downloading on romantic relationships as Seven, very domestically, helps attach Janeway's pips on her.
I do not require a romantic relationship.
So why'd you collect 30,000 gigaquads of data on the subject? I'm late.
To that we add another popular romantic trope, enemies to lovers, and boy, did these two definitely go through that with an antagonism that dominated their early interactions. This was perhaps most delightfully typified in Season 4, Episode 18 and 19, The Killing Game, when we got to see Janeway parade around in that white tux and have that spicy tension with Seven. But the most in-your-face example would have to be the subversion of the woman in the refrigerator trope that was used to close out the series. Using the death of the usually male protagonist's great love is a common storytelling device to motivate the hero's journey, and here it's no different. We find Janeway, decades later, having made it back to Earth. When asked about Seven in a classroom full of students, Janeway looks pained and says,
I'd prefer not to discuss 7 of 9.
She's clearly planning something big, something impulsive, and from the words of Chakotay's graveside,
I know it wasn't easy living all these years without her, Chakotay.
It's this her who is framed as the motivator for what is going to happen. Sure, Tuvok's illness plays into it, as does all the lives she lost on the voyage back to Earth, but the look on Admiral Janeway's face when Seven appears in sickbay, alive and well, speaks volumes, especially compared to her reaction to seeing Chakotay and Tuvok. The Admiral knows exactly what to say to her younger self when she is unwilling to listen to reason.
If it takes a few more years, then that 7 of 9 is going to die. What? 3 years from now, and die in the arms of her husband. Husband? Chakotay. He'll never be the same after 7's death, and neither will you.
Both revelations wash over Captain Janeway like a bucket of cold water, and it's this pivotal revelation that allows the two Janeways to finally work together. Both of them understand the importance that Seven plays in their lives, and thus Janeway is willing to risk everything, break the law, recklessly play with the timeline to save Seven. But even more than that, she is not only willing to change time for her, but she is ready to sacrifice herself to ensure the new timeline succeeds and that Seven can live. If that is not an epic love story, I don't know what is. What do you think are Janeway and Seven's gayest moments, and which ones did I miss? Until next time, lady lovers.